The cry for help. The night on the alien colony was silent, the sky full of broken stars and the distant hum of warships in orbit. The settlement lay quiet, every door closed, every window dark. People did not move after sunset. Fear kept them inside. Only one house at the edge of the colony had a light burning. It belonged to a human soldier, a man who had seen too many battles and had chosen to live in exile. The soldier sat at his table, sharpening his old combat knife. He lived alone, far from the noise of others. His name was Captain Daniel. Though most people simply called him the Human, he had no family here, no friends, and no reason to expect visitors. But that night, everything changed. A soft knock came at his door, so gentle that he almost thought it was the wind. He looked up, frowning, and listened. The knock came again, this time trembling. He stood, his hand near his weapon, and slowly opened the door. There, standing in the cold night air, was a small alien girl. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes wide and glowing faintly with sorrow. She wore torn clothes, her arms wrapped around herself. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Can I stay with you? My mother died today." The soldier froze. For a moment, he thought he had misheard her. The words were heavy, filled with despair. Her eyes were wet with tears that shimmered under the pale moonlight. No other alien would have dared to come to a human's door, but she had no choice. She had nowhere else to go. Daniel's first thought was to send her away. He was a soldier, not a guardian. He had seen what happened to humans who interfered with alien matters. Still, something in her voice struck him. It was not only pain, it was fear. She was shaking, her small hands clutching the edge of his coat, as if it were her last hope. "No one else will take me," she whispered again. "They call me cursed, they want me gone." Her head lowered, shoulders trembling. She looked like she expected him to turn her away. Daniel knelt down. Looking into her eyes, he saw the reflection of his own loneliness there. He had once lost family too. He knew the emptiness of being unwanted, and in that moment, he made his choice. "You can stay," he said quietly. His voice was rough, but his words carried warmth. Then he added the words that would change her life forever. "You can stay forever." The girl's eyes widened. A tear rolled down her cheek. But this time it was not from sorrow. It was from relief. Her small body leaned against him, seeking safety. For the first time since her mother's death, she felt like she was not alone. Daniel carried her inside. He placed a warm blanket around her shoulders and set food on the table. The girl looked at the bread and soup with disbelief, as if she had never seen kindness before. She ate slowly, her hands shaking. He did not ask too many questions. He knew the answers would come with time. As the fire burned low, she finally spoke again. "My mother, they hated her because she refused the council. They said we brought shame. They left me alone when she died." Her voice broke again, and she covered her face. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He knew enough about the alien council to understand danger. If they had cast out her family, then this girl was not only unwanted, she was hunted. He looked toward the window, half expecting shadows to be waiting there. "Rest," he said firmly. "You are safe here." But even as he spoke, he knew it was only partly true. Safety was never permanent. Not in this colony, not under alien rule. Still, for tonight, she would not be alone. She curled up on the small bed he offered, her fragile frame disappearing under the blanket. Daniel sat near the door, knife in hand, watching the fire die. His soldier's instincts told him this was not chance. The girl's arrival meant something larger was coming. Outside, the night remained silent, but in the distance, unseen eyes were already searching. Her people wanted her gone, and they would not stop. But inside the small house, the bond of human compassion had begun, a bond stronger than fear, a bond that would soon change both their destinies. The soldier looked at the sleeping child, and for the first time in years, he felt a purpose again, not as a warrior, not as an exile, but as a protector. And as the fire crackled faintly, his words echoed in the silence of the night, a promise that could never be broken. "You can stay forever." The human shelter. Morning light touched the colony, golden rays cutting through the cracks of the old human house. The girl woke slowly, wrapped in warmth she had never known before. For the first time since her mother's death, she had slept without fear. Daniel, the human soldier, was already awake. He moved quietly, making breakfast with steady hands. His eyes never left the window. His soldier's instincts told him that danger was never far. The girl sat up, her silver eyes scanning the small room. Everything felt strange to her. The walls were plain, the furniture simple, yet it felt safer than the grand halls of her own people. She whispered softly, "Why did you let me stay?" Daniel paused, looking at her. His answer was calm. Because no one should face the dark alone. His voice was rough, but the words carried strength. She lowered her head, holding the blanket close. "My people hate weakness," she said. "They say mercy is shame. That is why no one wanted me." Daniel studied her. He had fought against many alien soldiers in his life. He knew their pride, their cruelty, but seeing it reflected in a child's broken voice filled him with quiet anger. "Eat," he said, placing bread and water in front of her. "You will need your strength." She nodded, taking the food slowly. She ate like someone who had not known kindness for a long time. As they sat together, a noise outside made them both freeze. Boots on the dirt road, harsh voices speaking in the alien tongue. Daniel moved to the window. He saw 2 alien guards patrolling, their weapons gleaming in the sunlight. "They are searching," the girl whispered, her hands trembling. Daniel glanced at her. "Searching for you?" She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "They never forgive. My mother defied them. Now they want me gone too." The soldier's jaw tightened. He closed the shutters and spoke firmly. "Then you must not be seen. From now on, you stay hidden when they pass." The girl looked at him with confusion. "Why are you helping me? You are not one of us. If they find out, they will punish you too." Daniel gave a faint smile, one without joy. "I have faced worse punishments than this. Child, sometimes the right thing is worth the danger." His words were simple, but they carried weight. That day passed slowly. The girl stayed inside, her small body pressed to the corner whenever voices passed the house. Daniel kept watch, sharpening tools, checking his old rifle, preparing for what might come. When the night returned, the girl finally spoke again. Her voice was soft, almost afraid of the silence. "My mother said humans were different. She said you had something called heart." She looked at Daniel with searching eyes. "Is that why you are helping me?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring into the fire. "Heart is what makes us human. It is what makes us protect those who cannot fight. Your people see it as weakness, but I see it as strength." The girl listened, her eyes shining in the firelight. For the first time, she felt proud of being with a human. Later that night, shadows moved outside once more. Daniel saw them through a crack in the shutter. A group of aliens stopped near his house, whispering in low voices. Their faces were hidden under armor, their eyes cold. One of them pointed toward his home. Daniel's grip tightened on his weapon. He could hear the girl's breath quicken behind him. She whispered, "They know. They are looking for me." But the soldiers moved on, their heavy boots fading into the distance. Daniel waited until silence returned, then lowered his weapon. He turned to her and said calmly, "They will come again. This was only the beginning." The girl shivered. She pulled the blanket tighter around her and whispered, "If you tell them I am here, they will leave you alone. Why not give me to them?" Daniel's eyes hardened. "Because I already gave you my word. You can stay forever. A human's word is not broken, not even under threat." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of hope. She whispered, "Then I will trust you." That night, as she slept once more, Daniel sat at the door with his knife and rifle close. He knew the path he had chosen was dangerous, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. For the first time, he was not only surviving, he was protecting. Outside, unseen eyes watched from the shadows. The Alien Council's hunters had marked this house. They would return, stronger, and soon. But inside, the bond between human and alien child grew stronger. A bond that would face fire, war, and betrayal. A bond that would shake the pride of an entire species. And in the stillness of night, Daniel's promise echoed again in the silence. A promise made of steel and compassion. You can stay forever. The secret truth. The next morning came with gray clouds, heavy and low in the alien sky. Daniel stepped outside with caution, scanning the dirt road. No one passed, but the silence itself felt dangerous. He returned inside, where the girl sat near the fire, staring at her hands as if they carried a secret too heavy for her age. Daniel placed a cup of water beside her. Drink, he said simply. The girl obeyed, but her eyes never left her trembling fingers. At last, she whispered, I must tell you something, or the danger will never end. Daniel watched her closely. Go on, he said. She lifted her gaze, her silver eyes reflecting the firelight. My mother was not only a healer, she was a warrior of the council. She turned against them when she saw their cruelty. They called her a traitor, and they swore no child of hers would be allowed to live free. Daniel listened, silent. His soldier's instincts told him the truth of her words. He had fought aliens long enough to know how they treated betrayal. The girl's voice cracked. Before she died, she gave me something. It is hidden inside me, not a weapon, not gold, but a memory. She said it is the one truth that could destroy the council. Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady. What memory? The girl lowered her head. The council hides their past. They tell our people that weakness is shame, that mercy is forbidden. But my mother told me of the time before, when our kind lived in peace. She said I carry the genetic key that unlocks the old archives. If they capture me, they will erase it. If I survive, I can show the truth. Daniel's jaw tightened. He understood now why soldiers had come searching. The girl was not only a child. She was a threat to the power of an empire. You should have told me sooner, he said firmly. She flinched, but he softened his tone. It does not change anything. You are safe here, but now I know what they fear. Before she could answer, loud voices echoed from outside. Daniel moved quickly to the window. A group of alien enforcers walked through the settlement, stopping at each house, questioning the villagers. Some pointed nervously toward Daniel's home. The girl's breath caught. They are asking about me, she whispered. Daniel turned from the window, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. Then you must hide. He led her to a trapdoor beneath the floorboards, an old storage space from his soldier days. Stay quiet. No matter what you hear, he instructed. She gripped his hand tightly, her small voice shaking. If they take you, I cannot be alone again. Daniel placed his hand on her shoulder. I have faced worse than them. Trust me. He closed the trapdoor, leaving her in darkness. Moments later, heavy knocks thundered against his door. Daniel opened it slowly, his face expressionless. 3 alien soldiers stood outside, armored and armed. Their leader spoke harshly. Human, we search for a fugitive child. Have you seen her? Daniel kept his voice calm. I live alone. No child has come to me. The soldiers stepped forward, scanning the room behind Daniel. Strange. Some say they saw movement near your house. Daniel's hand rested on the edge of the door, not on his weapon, but ready. His eyes did not waver. Then your witnesses lie, he said coldly. The alien narrowed his gaze. For a long moment, silence stretched. Then the leader spat on the ground. Watch yourself, human. Protecting one of us is treason. With that, they turned and left, their boots pounding the dirt. Daniel closed the door slowly. He lifted the trapdoor and helped the girl out. She was trembling, her face pale. They will come back, she said in a broken whisper. They will never stop. Daniel knelt before her, his voice steady. Then we do not wait for them. We move before they strike. Her eyes widened. Where will we go? He looked at the map carved into his old table, his finger tracing a path toward the mountains. There are places they fear, old mines, forgotten tunnels. We will go there. They will not find us easily. The girl hesitated, then nodded slowly. Her fear was still strong, but Daniel's certainty gave her strength. That night, as they prepared to leave, she whispered once more, why risk your life for me? You could walk away, you could hand me over and live in peace. Daniel looked at her, his voice low and unshakable. Peace bought with betrayal is no peace at all. I told you, you can stay forever, and I meant it. She lowered her head, her tears falling silently. For the first time, she believed his words with her whole heart. But as they left the house under the shadow of night, Daniel knew the journey ahead would not be easy. The council would send more soldiers, stronger and more ruthless. The secret the girl carried was enough to start a war. And though the road was dark and uncertain, one truth burned in Daniel's chest. Humanity would not abandon her. Not now. Not ever. The first chase. The night air was cold, the stars hidden behind dark clouds. Daniel led the girl quietly through the back paths of the settlement. His rifle was strapped across his back, his knife ready at his side. The girl clutched his coat, her silver eyes wide with fear but filled with trust. They moved quickly, avoiding the main road. Every house they passed was silent, windows shut tight. No one would help them. No one would dare. Whispers had already spread that the human was hiding the cursed child. As they reached the edge of the settlement, a faint glow appeared in the distance. Torches. Daniel froze. He listened carefully. Boots, many boots, marching toward them. The girl's breath quickened. "They are here," she whispered. Daniel pulled her close. "Stay behind me." His eyes scanned the ground, finding a narrow path leading into the old quarry. "This way," he said firmly. They ran, their footsteps silent on the dirt. Behind them, the sound of voices grew louder. The alien soldiers had arrived. Their orders echoed through the night. "Search every house. Search every road. Find the girl." Daniel and the child reached the quarry, its jagged rocks rising like broken teeth against the moonlight. He led her down into the shadows. Crouching low, the ground smelled of dust and old metal, a place long abandoned. The girl trembled. "They will find us," she whispered. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Not if you stay quiet." His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who had faced war and survived. But even as he spoke, lights flickered above them. Alien soldiers had entered the quarry, searching with sharp eyes. Daniel pulled the girl deeper into the rocks, guiding her into a narrow tunnel. They crouched inside, the sound of footsteps echoing near. One soldier's light swept dangerously close. Daniel held his breath. His hand pressed gently over the girl's mouth to keep her silent. The beam of light paused on the rocks, then moved away. The footsteps faded. When silence returned, the girl looked up at him, her eyes full of tears. "Why do they hate me so much?" she whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because you carry something they fear. Truth is the greatest weapon against tyrants." They crawled through the tunnel until it opened into a wide cavern. Rusted machines lay broken, old mining carts overturned. The air was heavy with dust. Daniel studied the shadows, listening for danger. "We can rest here for a moment," he said. The girl sat down, her small body trembling from exhaustion. Daniel gave her a canteen of water. She drank slowly, her eyes never leaving him. "You are not afraid?" she asked. Daniel sat beside her, his rifle resting on his knees. "Fear never leaves a soldier," he said quietly. "But fear does not control me." Her lips trembled. "I am afraid all the time." He looked at her with steady eyes. "That is why I am here. You do not have to carry it alone." For a brief moment, silence filled the cavern, a fragile peace between the chaos. But it was broken by the sudden sound of rocks falling. A soldier's voice echoed through the tunnels, harsh and commanding. "They are inside. Find them." Daniel's eyes narrowed. He stood quickly, pulling the girl to her feet. "Move," he ordered. They ran deeper into the mine, their footsteps echoing on the stone. Behind them, alien soldiers poured into the tunnels, their torches burning like hungry eyes. Shots rang out, sparks flying as bullets struck stone. The girl screamed. Daniel pushed her forward, shielding her with his body. His rifle barked, the sound deafening in the narrow space. One soldier fell, another stumbled back. "Go," Daniel shouted, guiding her down another passage. The tunnels twisted like a maze, shadows swallowing them whole. The girl's breath came in gasps, her heart pounding. Daniel stayed calm, his every step measured. Every turn was chosen with a soldier's instinct. At last they reached a broken shaft, wooden beams hanging like bones. A rope ladder dangled into the darkness. Daniel grabbed it, testing its weight. "Climb," he said. The girl hesitated. "What if I fall?" He met her gaze, his voice firm. "Then I will catch you." She swallowed her fear and began climbing. Her hands shook, but she kept moving. Daniel followed close behind, his rifle slung across his back, his knife in his teeth. Below, the voices grew louder. Soldiers were closing in. The girl reached the top, pulling herself onto the ledge. Daniel leapt after her. Just as a torchlight appeared below, a soldier shouted, "There! They are escaping!" Shots whizzed past, but Daniel dragged the girl into another tunnel. They emerged at last into the open night. The mountains rose around them, cold and dark. Daniel pulled the girl close, both of them breathing hard. "We are not safe yet," he said, "but we are free for now." The girl looked at him, her silver eyes shining with both fear and admiration. "You saved me again," she whispered. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "And I will keep saving you, as long as I breathe." Behind them, the quarry burned with torches, the soldiers' voices rising in anger. The hunt was not over. It had only begun. But in that moment, standing together beneath the cold stars, the bond between human and alien child grew stronger than fear, stronger than the darkness. And in the silence of the mountains, the girl repeated his words softly, as if to remind herself of hope. "You said I can stay forever." Daniel looked at her, his eyes unyielding. "I meant it," he said, and with those words, the chase turned into a promise. The bond. The mountains were quiet, the air cold and sharp. Daniel and the girl climbed higher, their footsteps crunching against stone. The torches and shouts of the soldiers were far behind now, but the echo of danger still followed them. Every shadow looked like a hunter. Every gust of wind carried the memory of fear. At last, they found a small cave hidden between jagged rocks. Daniel led her inside. The walls were rough, the floor uneven, but it was shelter. He lit a small fire, its glow chasing away the dark. The girl sat close to the flames, her silver eyes reflecting the light. She was tired, her body trembling, but her spirit had not broken. Daniel watched her quietly, his soldier's mind calculating, his heart steady. After a long silence, she spoke. "When I was younger, my mother told me stories, not of battles or victories, but of days when our people lived with kindness. She said we once sang songs instead of marching to war. I never believed her until now. Sitting here, with you, I feel those stories could be true." Daniel's gaze softened. "Your mother was right. War is not the only way. Mercy is not weakness. It is what makes life worth protecting." The girl looked at him with quiet wonder. "Then why do humans fight so much? Why do you carry weapons if you believe in kindness?" Daniel leaned back, staring into the flames. "Because kindness must be defended. There will always be those who destroy, those who enslave. If no one stands against them, mercy dies. That is why I fight, not for power, but for those who cannot." Her lips trembled. "Like me." He nodded. "Like you." For the first time, she smiled. It was small, fragile, but real. She whispered, "Then I will learn from you. I will be strong, but not cruel, brave, but not blind. Will you teach me?" Daniel's chest tightened. He had once trained soldiers, hardened men ready for war, but teaching a child to survive, to keep her humanity in a world of cruelty, that was a different battle. "Yes," he said firmly, "I will teach you." The next days became a strange rhythm. Daniel taught her how to walk silently on stone, how to spot danger before it came, how to use her small size as strength. He gave her simple tasks, collecting wood, carrying water, watching the path below. At night, she told him more about her people, secrets whispered by her mother, tales of the council's lies, of families destroyed for refusing orders. Daniel listened, storing every word like a weapon. Slowly, the bond between them grew. No longer just protector and child. They became something deeper. She began calling him guardian, a word from her language that meant both shield and guide. Daniel accepted it without protest, though in his heart, he felt it was more. But danger was never far. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the peaks, the girl froze while gathering wood. Her sharp ears caught voices carried by the wind. Daniel rushed to her side. Together, they crouched behind rocks, watching as figures moved along the mountain path. It was not soldiers this time, but bounty hunters. Their armor was mismatched, their weapons brutal. They carried strange nets that glowed with energy, designed to capture, not kill. The girl's breath quickened. "They want me alive," she whispered. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "That makes them more dangerous." They waited until the hunters passed, then retreated deeper into the cave. Daniel reinforced the entrance with stones, his mind racing. "The council has grown desperate. They know you escaped. Now they will send every tool they have." The girl hugged herself, her voice trembling. "I am only one child. Why do they fear me so much?" Daniel crouched beside her, his voice steady. "Because you are more than one child. You carry truth, and truth is more powerful than an army. They fear what you represent. Hope, and hope is something they cannot kill." Her eyes filled with tears, but not of sorrow this time. They were tears of determination. Then I will not run forever. If they fear me for truth, I will make them hear it. Daniel placed his hand on her shoulder, his voice low but firm. Not yet. First you must survive, then we will fight, but you will not face them alone. The fire flickered between them, casting shadows on the cave walls. In that moment, both knew their bond was unbreakable, stronger than fear, stronger than the council's power. Far away, in the halls of the alien rulers, news of the failed searches spread. The council's voices rose in anger. Their command was clear: bring the child back at any cost. But in the mountains, beneath the watchful stars, a human and an alien child forged something the council could never understand: a bond of mercy, a bond of trust, a bond that would soon challenge an empire. And as the night deepened, the girl whispered softly, almost like a vow, "Guardian, I will stay with you forever." Daniel looked at her, his eyes unyielding, his voice steady. Forever. The stand. The mountains grew colder as days passed. Winds cut sharp against the rocks, and snow gathered at the peaks. Daniel and the girl moved carefully through hidden trails, always watching, always listening. The hunters did not stop. Sometimes their shouts echoed in the valleys. Sometimes their shadows flickered across the ridges. Daniel knew they could not keep running forever. He needed a plan. The girl, though young, sensed the same truth. Her eyes no longer only showed fear. They carried fire now, a spark that grew each day. One night, as the fire burned low, she sat across from him, her hands clenched tightly. "Guardian," she whispered, "I do not want to hide anymore. I want to stand, like my mother did." Daniel studied her, his scarred face unreadable. Inside, his heart ached. She was only a child, yet already burdened with more than most soldiers could bear. "Standing takes more than courage," he said quietly. "It takes strength, skill, and a cause worth dying for." She looked at him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. "I have all three. You gave me courage, you gave me skill, and my cause is truth. I cannot run from it." Daniel leaned forward, his voice firm. "Then we prepare, but you must understand, once you take this path, there is no return. The council will never forgive." Her small voice did not shake. "Then let them never forgive." From that moment, Daniel began training her not only to survive but to resist. He showed her how to use tools as weapons, how to make traps with simple rope and stone, how to strike not with strength but with timing. The girl learned quickly, her movements sharp, her mind focused. But she carried something Daniel could not teach. At times, when her hands touched the old stones, faint light flickered under her skin, a pulse of energy deep within her blood. She tried to hide it at first, but one night, when she thought he was asleep, he saw her palms glowing softly as she whispered words from her mother's tongue. The next morning, he confronted her gently. "What is it you hide?" She lowered her gaze, her voice barely audible. "It is the gift my mother gave me. The memory inside me is not only words, it is power. When I speak the old language, it answers. I think it is the key to the archive she spoke of, but I do not yet understand it." Daniel's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in thought. "Then we must be careful. Power draws enemies faster than fire draws wolves." Her lips pressed tight. "But maybe it can also protect us." The days turned into weeks. The girl grew stronger, faster, more confident. She was no longer only the hunted child. She was becoming something else, a symbol. Then, one evening, the hunters returned, this time in greater numbers. Their torches lit the mountains like rivers of fire. Their voices rose, cruel and sharp. "The girl is near. Find her. Take her alive." Daniel and the girl watched from the shadows of their cave. His jaw tightened. "We cannot run anymore," he said. She nodded, her small frame trembling but her eyes steady. "Then we make our stand." Together they worked through the night. Daniel laid traps along the narrow paths, stones balanced to fall, spikes hidden in the snow. The girl etched strange marks with her glowing hands, whispering in the old tongue. The air shimmered faintly where she touched. When dawn broke, the hunters came. Their boots thundered across the rocks, weapons raised. They entered the pass where Daniel waited. Hidden, his rifle cracked. The first hunter fell. Another trap triggered, rocks crashing down, scattering the enemy. The girl stood further back, her hands glowing. Her voice rose in a language older than the council itself. Energy rippled from her palms, striking the ground. The earth shuddered. Hunters stumbled, weapons sparking uselessly. For a moment, fear showed in their eyes. They had expected a weak child, but what they saw was something else, something powerful. Daniel shouted. Now. Together they pushed forward, he with steel and fire, she with light and truth. The hunters, fierce and merciless, began to fall back. Some fled, their courage broken. At last, silence returned to the mountain pass. The ground was scorched, weapons scattered. Daniel lowered his rifle, breathing hard. The girl stood beside him, her hands still glowing faintly, her face pale but proud. She looked at him and whispered, "We did it." Daniel placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "This was only the first. They will return, stronger, but now they know you are not helpless." Her silver eyes shone with determination. "Let them come. I will not run again. I will fight with you, forever." Daniel met her gaze, and for the first time, he felt not only a protector's duty, but the rise of something greater. This child, once broken and unwanted, now stood as a beacon. If she lived, she could change everything. Far away, in the alien council's halls, word of the battle reached cold ears. The hunters had failed. The girl lived. The council's anger turned to fear. They realized too late that the truth they had buried was awakening. And in the mountains, beneath the endless sky, Daniel and the girl prepared, not for escape, not for surrender, but for the storm to come. The bond between them was no longer only protection. It was alliance. It was strength. It was hope. And as night fell once more, Daniel's voice carried softly across the fire, a vow unbroken. "You will never be alone. You can stay forever. Forever." The sky above the mountains burned red with the light of dawn. Cold winds howled between the cliffs, carrying the distant roar of engines. Daniel stood at the cave entrance, his rifle across his chest. His eyes narrowed as ships cut through the clouds, dark and heavy. The council had come at last, not with hunters, but with soldiers. The girl stood behind him, her silver eyes glowing faintly. She was no longer only a frightened child. Her hands were steady, her voice calm. The power within her pulsed like a hidden star. She whispered, "They will not stop until I am gone." Daniel looked at her, his scarred face unyielding. "Then we give them a fight they will never forget." The ground shook as dropships landed in the valley below. Dozens of armored soldiers poured out, their weapons sharp, their orders clear. The commander raised his voice, echoing against the rocks. "Give us the child, human, and we may let you live." Daniel stepped forward, his voice like steel. "She stays with me." The commander sneered, "You cannot stand against us." But even as he spoke, unease flickered in his eyes. The council had warned him. The girl carried something more dangerous than any weapon. The soldiers advanced. Their boots thundered like drums of war. Daniel raised his rifle. The girl lifted her hands. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then the battle began. Gunfire echoed across the cliffs. Daniel moved with deadly precision. Every shot counted, every movement sharp. He fought not as a man protecting himself, but as a guardian standing for something greater. The girl's voice rose, speaking the ancient language. Her hands blazed with light. Energy rippled outward, striking the ground, breaking weapons, shattering armor. The soldiers faltered. Fear spread like fire. They had expected to crush a runaway child. Instead, they faced a force that carried both human courage and alien power. But the council had not come unprepared. From the largest dropship stepped a figure clad in black armor, taller than the rest. His voice was cold as he spoke. "So, the child of the traitor lives. You think you can defy us with a human's help? You are nothing." The girl trembled, but Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "You are not nothing. You are everything they fear." Her eyes burned with tears and strength. She stepped forward, raising her glowing hands. "I am not cursed," she shouted, her voice echoing through the mountains. "I am truth, and truth cannot be killed." The armored commander charged. Daniel met him head-on. Their clash shook the rocks, steel against steel, blow after blow. The girl stood behind, her voice chanting. The ground glowed with symbols of the old language. Her power rose higher, brighter, until even the sky seemed to bend. At last, the commander struck Daniel down to one knee, his blade lifted high. But before the final strike could fall, light erupted from the girl. A wave of energy blasted outward, knocking soldiers to the ground, shattering the commander's blade. His armor cracked, his body thrown against the rocks. Silence followed, broken only by the wind. The soldiers, seeing their leader defeated, dropped their weapons. Some fled, others fell to their knees. Fear had turned into surrender. Daniel rose slowly, breathing hard. His eyes turned to the girl. She stood tall, her small frame glowing with power. Yet her face was calm, her eyes gentle. She lowered her hands, and the light faded. The battle was over, but something greater had begun. The girl had shown not only her strength, but the truth of her people's past. Mercy, courage, and hope lived within her, and with a human's protection, she had proved it to all. Daniel stepped beside her, placing his hand firmly on her shoulder. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the silence. "It is done. You are safe." She looked up at him, her silver eyes soft with emotion. "Guardian, I asked you once if I could stay with you. I ask again, will you still have me?" Daniel's eyes did not waver. His voice was steady as stone. "You can stay forever." The girl's tears fell, but they were no longer tears of fear. They were tears of belonging. She leaned against him, no longer an outcast, no longer hunted, but home. Above them, the red sky began to clear. The first rays of true sunlight touched the peaks. It felt like a new dawn, not only for them, but for all who would one day hear their story. Far away, in the halls of the council, silence spread. Their soldiers had failed, their lies cracked. A child and a human had stood against their empire and lived. The beginning of change had come. And in the quiet of the mountain, as the fire burned once more, Daniel watched the girl sleep safely at his side. His heart, once heavy with exile, now carried a new purpose. He was no longer alone. His promise echoed in the stillness, a vow unbroken, forever.